Alex Eala just purchased the childhood tennis club that rejected her for $10 million. The same facility that told a young Filipino girl she didn't have what it takes now bears her name, transformed by the champion that they refuse to believe in. This isn't just a real estate transaction. It's poetic justice delivered with a check that turned rejection into redemption. But the story behind this purchase reveals wounds that money can't heal and questions about whether success truly erases the pain of being told you'll never belong. Manila Verde Tennis Club stood as one of the Philippines' most prestigious athletic facilities. Pristine clay courts, state-of-the-art equipment, coaches who'd trained national champions. Membership required connections, wealth, and, though nobody said it explicitly, fitting a certain image of what a future tennis star should look like. When 8-year-old Alex Eala walked through those gates holding her mother's hand, clutching a racket that was slightly too big for her small frame, she didn't understand yet how places like this operated. Her mother had saved for months to afford the trial membership fee, hoping that Alex's obvious talent would earn her a spot in the junior development program. Alex had been dominating local tournaments, beating players 3 years older, despite training on cracked public courts with nets that sagged in the middle. Her forehand already showed glimpses of the power that would one day make her a professional threat. Her movements suggested instincts that couldn't be taught, only nurtured. She had everything except the pedigree that Manila Verde valued above skill. The evaluation day felt like an audition where the decision had already been made before she stepped onto the court. The head coach, a former professional player whose own career had plateaued in satellite tournaments, watched with arms crossed as Alex rallied with one of the club's junior instructors. She chased down balls that should have been winners. Her shots landed deep and consistent. Her competitive fire burned obvious even in a meaningless practice exchange. But when the session ended and Alex's mother approached to ask about enrollment, the coach's response carried the polite cruelty that gatekeepers perfect over years of rejecting outsiders. "She's enthusiastic," he said, choosing words carefully, "but international tennis requires resources we're not equipped to provide for every talented youngster. Perhaps she'd be better suited for programs more aligned with her current level of development." The euphemism hung in the air. Current level meant public courts. Development meant knowing she'd never have access to what wealthier kids received automatically. The message was clear. Alex didn't belong in spaces like Manila Verde, regardless of her talent. Her mother tried negotiating. She offered to pay full membership fees despite the financial strain. She suggested Alex could train during off-peak hours, using courts when the priority members weren't playing. She practically begged for an opportunity to prove her daughter's worth. The coach remained unmoved. Manila Verde maintains standards, he explained. Accepting students who didn't fit their program profile would dilute the quality that made them prestigious. He recommended several other facilities, code for places that accepted players without connections or money. Alex stood nearby during this exchange, young enough that the full weight of rejection hadn't crushed her yet, but old enough to understand she was being dismissed. She watched other kids her age hitting on the best courts, their parents chatting casually with coaches who smiled and encouraged and invested attention in players who'd never faced the barriers Alex encountered daily. The injustice of talent mattering less than background planted something deep in her consciousness that day, a determination to prove every person who doubted her catastrophically wrong. Years later, Alex would describe that rejection as the moment that defined her entire career. Not the Grand Slam junior title, not the professional victories, but the day someone looked at an 8-year-old girl with obvious gifts and decided she didn't deserve the same opportunities as kids born into privilege. That wound never fully healed. It evolved into fuel that powered every training session, every match, every moment she wanted to quit but refused because quitting meant proving the doubters right. What happened next would transform that painful memory into a journey nobody, especially Manila Verde's gatekeepers, could have predicted. Rejection from Manila Verde forced Alex Eala's family to get creative. Her parents researched international tennis academies, looking for places that identified talent based on skill rather than zip codes or family connections. They discovered the Rafa Vidal Academy in Mallorca, a facility built on the philosophy that champions come from everywhere if given proper support. The academy offered scholarships for exceptional prospects who couldn't afford standard fees. Alex's application included tournament results that spoke louder than her family's bank balance. The scholarship changed everything. Suddenly, Alex trained on world-class courts with coaching from instructors who developed Grand Slam champions. She lived alongside players from dozens of countries, learning that tennis excellence transcended nationality and wealth. The Academy's culture emphasized work ethic and mental toughness over entitlement. Nobody cared that Alex came from a country without tennis infrastructure. They cared whether she'd do the repetitions, absorb the technical corrections, and compete with the hunger that separated champions from talented players who never reached potential. Alex thrived immediately. Her game, built on grit and limited resources in the Philippines, responded to elite-level instruction like dry ground absorbing rain. Her forehand gained consistency and variety, her serve developed pace and placement, her movement became more efficient, covering court with less wasted energy. But the most significant transformation wasn't technical, it was psychological. For the first time, Alex trained in an environment where her talent was celebrated rather than questioned, where coaches invested in her development because they recognized ability rather than pedigree. The results arrived quickly. Alex dominated junior tournaments across Europe, accumulating titles that built her ranking and reputation. College tennis programs in the United States began recruiting her. Professional agents started conversations about representation. But the breakthrough moment came at the 2022 U.S. Juniors Championship. Alex, seeded modestly and considered an outsider by analysts focused on players from traditional tennis nations, navigated through the draw with performances that combined technical skill and mental toughness refined through years of overcoming barriers. The final was straight sets, dominant, authoritative, a statement that Eala belonged on the biggest stages regardless of where she started or who doubted her journey. When the match ended and she fell to the court in celebration, she became the first Filipino player ever to win a Grand Slam title at any level. The achievement resonated far beyond tennis. In the Philippines, where tennis remained a niche sport played primarily by economic elites, Alex's victory represented possibility for kids who'd been told their backgrounds disqualified them from international success. Manila Verde Tennis Club posted congratulations on social media. The same coaches who'd rejected her years earlier now claimed pride in her Filipino heritage, conveniently omitting their role in denying her opportunities. Alex saw the posts. She didn't respond publicly, but people close to her noticed how she screenshotted the messages, saving receipts from an institution that wanted association with her success after refusing to invest in her potential. Her professional career launched with momentum from the Junior Grand Slam. She cracked the top 200 in WTA rankings. Sponsorship deals materialized from brands attracted to her story. Underdog narrative combined with genuine talent and marketable personality. Prize money accumulated, her financial situation transformed from family sacrifices funding tennis streams to Alex supporting her parents comfortably. Success arrived, validating every sacrifice and proving doubters wrong. But one memory refused to fade. One wound that championship trophies and ranking points couldn't heal. Walking away from Manila Verde knowing she was good enough, but would never get the chance to prove it there. Then, years after that rejection, opportunity for closure arrived in the most unexpected form. Alex was in Madrid preparing for a clay court tournament when her business manager called with unusual urgency. Manila Verde Tennis Club was collapsing financially. Years of mismanagement, declining membership as newer facilities opened nearby, and debt from ambitious expansions during profitable years had pushed the club toward insolvency. The ownership group was quietly seeking buyers, hoping to avoid public bankruptcy that would humiliate families who'd built social identities around membership. The manager explained that Alex's team had been approached discreetly by intermediaries representing the club. They knew Alex's connection to Manila Verde, not the rejection, but her status as a successful Filipino athlete with resources and potential interest in tennis development projects. The asking price was steep. $10 million for the facility, its courts, buildings, and the prestige associated with the Manila Verde name. The intermediaries framed it as an investment opportunity, a chance for Alex to own premium real estate in one of Manila's most desirable neighborhoods. Alex listened silently. Her manager couldn't see her expression over the phone, couldn't observe how memories were flooding back, standing outside those gates as a child, watching through fences as other kids played on courts she'd never access, feeling the sting of being told she wasn't good enough for spaces her talent clearly qualified her to occupy. The irony wasn't subtle. The same institution that rejected her for lacking pedigree now desperately needed her money to survive. Her initial instinct was refusal. Why would she bail out people who'd dismissed her potential, who'd prioritized connections over talent, who'd built a system designed to exclude kids like her? Let Manila Verde collapse under the weight of its own elitism. Let the coaches and administrators who'd turned away talented players face consequences for valuing prestige over merit. She owed them nothing. Less than nothing, considering how their rejection could have derailed her career if her family hadn't found alternatives. But as days passed and Alex discussed options with her parents and advisors, a different possibility emerged. What if purchasing Manila Verde wasn't about rescuing people who'd rejected her, but about transforming a space that represented everything wrong with how talent gets identified and supported, and rebuilding it with a mission that ensured future Alex Ealas wouldn't face the same barriers? Her parents were skeptical. $10 million represented substantial investment, money that could fund countless other projects without the emotional baggage attached to Manila Verde. But Alex kept returning to a simple truth. She had the resources to purchase closure, to transform a space that symbolized her deepest professional wound into evidence that rejection doesn't define your ceiling. She could literally purchase the place that told her she didn't belong and remake it in her image. The decision crystallized during a conversation with her younger cousin, a talented junior player facing the same obstacles Alex had encountered. The girl mentioned training on public courts because her family couldn't afford premium club memberships. Alex recognized herself in that story, the talent being constrained by circumstances rather than ability. She realized Manila Verde could become the solution to a problem she understood personally. She called her manager back with instructions. Make an offer, negotiate the purchase, but with one non-negotiable. The club's name would change. Manila Verde Tennis Club would cease to exist, replaced with something that honored where she came from and what she'd overcome. The announcement of Alex Eala's purchase would shock the tennis community and divide opinion in ways nobody anticipated. The press conference was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon at the club itself, a location choice that carried deliberate symbolism. Alex Eala would announce the purchase at the facility that had once rejected her, standing on courts she'd been denied access to as a child. Media speculation had been building for weeks after rumors of the sale leaked. Nobody knew the buyer's identity initially, but when Alex's team confirmed she'd be making the announcement personally, the narrative started writing itself. She arrived dressed in business casual rather than tennis gear, signaling this was about more than sport. Cameras crowded the club's main pavilion. Filipino sports journalists, international tennis media, and business reporters covering the real estate angle all jostled for position. Current Manila Verde members sat in reserved seating, their expressions ranging from curious to uncomfortable as they realized the girl they'd excluded now controlled their social sanctuary. Alex's statement was brief but carefully constructed. She acknowledged Manila Verde's history and reputation in Filipino tennis. She thanked the previous ownership for their years of service to the sport, then pivoted to why she'd purchased the facility and what would change. Her voice remained steady, but anyone listening closely could hear emotion threading through certain phrases, moments where past hurt shaped present purpose. When I was 8 years old, I stood outside these gates dreaming of training here. I was told this facility wasn't for players like me, that my background didn't align with Manila Verde standards. That rejection changed my life. It taught me that talent isn't always enough, that opportunity often depends on who you know and where you come from, rather than how hard you work or how much potential you have. The room went silent. Former club administrators shifted uncomfortably. Alex continued, her words landing with the weight of someone who'd spent years preparing this moment. Today, I'm changing Manila Verde's mission completely. This facility will become the Eala Tennis Academy, dedicated to identifying and supporting talented Filipino players regardless of their economic background, family connections, or zip code. We'll offer full scholarships to players who demonstrate exceptional ability and commitment. We'll invest in coaching, equipment, and tournament travel for kids who currently train on public courts with hand-me-down rackets. We'll build the program I wished had existed when I needed it most. The financial commitment was staggering. Beyond the $10 million purchase price, Alex pledged millions more for facility upgrades, scholarship funding, and operational expenses designed to make elite tennis training accessible to kids from all backgrounds. She'd assembled a board of advisors including former coaches from the Rafa Nadal Academy, Filipino sports officials, and youth development experts committed to identifying talent solely based on merit. The renaming ceremony happened immediately after her announcement. Workers removed the old Manila Verde signage as cameras captured every moment. Alex unveiled the new name herself, pulling back a covering to reveal Eala Tennis Academy in bold letters above the entrance. Some audience members applauded. Others sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. Current members received notice that their memberships would be honored, but the facility's priorities had shifted. Junior development programs would take precedence over social events. Courts would be allocated based on training needs rather than member status. The club they'd known as an exclusive retreat was becoming something radically different, a genuine developmental academy focused on cultivating Filipino talent that the old system had systematically excluded. The reaction to Alex's purchase split the tennis world and revealed uncomfortable truths about privilege, revenge, and redemption. Social media erupted within hours. The story had everything: underdog triumph, poetic justice, wealth used to correct past wrongs. Filipino tennis fans celebrated Alex's purchase as vindication, proof that talent eventually wins regardless of initial obstacles. Inspirational quote accounts shared her story as evidence that rejection fuels champions. Youth sports advocates praised the scholarship model as exactly what tennis needed to become more accessible beyond economic elites. But not everyone interpreted the purchase as purely noble. Critics emerged arguing that Alex's decision was performative revenge, disguised as philanthropy, that renaming the club after herself revealed ego rather than altruism. Some suggested she'd purchased Manila Verde not to help future generations, but to humiliate people who doubted her, that the entire project was about settling scores rather than genuinely improving Filipino tennis development. Former Manila Verde coaches and administrators faced uncomfortable scrutiny. Journalists tracked down the head coach who'd rejected Alex years earlier, now retired and clearly uncomfortable discussing decisions that seemed defensible at the time, but looked indefensible in retrospect. He offered carefully worded statements about limited resources and difficult choices, avoiding direct acknowledgement that he'd dismissed a future champion based on factors unrelated to talent. His discomfort was palpable. What do you say when your professional judgment is proven catastrophically wrong on a global stage? Current members reacted with mixed emotions. Some genuinely supported Alex's mission and appreciated being part of a facility dedicated to meaningful youth development. Others resented the transformation of their social club into a developmental academy, complaining privately that they'd purchased memberships for exclusivity and prestige that no longer existed. A few resigned their memberships in protest, unwilling to accept that their recreational tennis now shared space with scholarship kids from neighborhoods they'd never visit. The most fascinating divide emerged among tennis professionals and sports psychologists analyzing Alex's motivations. Some argued the purchase represented healthy closure, transforming trauma into productive change that would benefit countless future players. They pointed out that using her success to create opportunities for others demonstrated maturity and generosity, that she could have simply ignored Manila Verde's collapse or celebrated its downfall, but instead chose construction over destruction. Others questioned whether Alex had truly healed from that childhood rejection, or whether the purchase indicated wounds that remained open despite her achievements. They suggested spending $10 million to reclaim a space that rejected you might signal that success hasn't provided the emotional resolution she sought, that perhaps no amount of championship trophies or renamed facilities can erase the pain of being told you don't belong. The debate intensified when a prominent sports columnist published an essay titled, "Can You Buy Forgiveness?" The piece explored whether Alex's purchase was magnanimous or vindictive, whether transforming rejection into redemption required returning to the scene of past hurt, or whether truly moving forward meant never looking back. The essay went viral, generating thousands of comments from people projecting their own experiences with rejection onto Alex's story. Alex herself remained largely silent amid the controversy, letting her actions speak rather than defending her motivations endlessly. She posted occasional updates about academy construction progress, scholarship application processes, and coaching hires. She declined interview requests specifically about the emotional dimensions of purchasing Manila Verde, preferring to keep focus on the practical mission of identifying and supporting talented Filipino players. But as construction progressed and the Academy's first scholarship recipients were selected, something unexpected began happening.